I joked that his best friend could describe my scars better than he could. He overheard, hired a lawyer, and ended the marriage that night. I'm Maya Calder, 38, and I restore historical estates for a living. Ironic, considering I'm about to tell you how I demolished my own life with the same precision I used to strip paint from 18th century moldings. 12 years. That's how long I've been married to Julian Mercer, venture capital partner at Horizon Capital. We have 2 kids, Theo's 10, Isla's 7. 4-bedroom colonial in Westport, Connecticut. The kind of life that looks pristine on Christmas cards. But here's what those cards don't show: Julian analyzing portfolios during Theo's soccer games. Julian missing Isla's recital for a Singapore merger. Julian treating our marriage like a successfully acquired asset that no longer needs active management. I used to be interesting to him. Back when I was the young architect who caught his eye at a gallery opening, who could discuss Byzantine arch construction and Brazilian derivatives in the same breath. Now? I'm infrastructure. Reliable. Maintained. Forgotten. You knew who I was when you married me, Julian would say whenever I brought it up. Like that absolved him. Like I should have predicted that driven would mutate into absent. 3 months ago, everything shifted. Julian's best friend since Yale, Rafi Ortega, started coming around more. Rafi's a trauma surgeon at Presbyterian, the kind of guy who saves lives with his hands while Julian just moves numbers on screens. It started with Rafi fixing our garbage disposal while Julian was in Hong Kong. "You shouldn't have to handle this alone," he said, tools spread across my kitchen counter. The way he said it, like he actually saw me struggling. Like he gave a damn. Then came the texts. Just checking if I needed anything while Julian traveled. Sending funny memes about architecture fails. Asking my opinion on things. Real things. Not just what's for dinner or did you call the lawn service. "You're brilliant, Maya," Rafi told me over coffee one afternoon. Julian had cancelled lunch again. "Your restoration of the Whitmore estate should have won that preservation award. Julian should have been there celebrating with you." Should have. 2 words that became my gateway substance. I started looking forward to Julian's trips. Dubai meant Rafi would stop by to check the leaking upstairs bathroom. London meant Rafi would take me and the kids for ice cream. Singapore meant yesterday. The kids were at school. I'd taken the day off to work on project bids. Rafi came by around noon. Julian's flight wasn't due back until midnight. "I brought Thai food," he said at my door. "Remembered you mentioned craving pad see ew." He remembered. When's the last time Julian remembered anything I craved? We ate in the kitchen. Talked about his latest surgery. My newest restoration project. How Theo was doing in school. Normal things. Safe things. Then he helped me clean up, and our hands touched reaching for the same plate. I kissed him. Or he kissed me. Honestly, I don't know who moved first. But I know I didn't stop it. 12 years of being invisible, and suddenly someone saw me. Really saw me. "Maya," he breathed against my neck. "You sure?" I was. God help me, I was sure. For once in so damn long, I felt sure about something. About someone wanting me. About deserving to be wanted. We moved to the living room. His hands knew exactly where to touch. How to make me feel alive instead of like another item on Julian's quarterly review checklist. "You're incredible," Rafi whispered. "Julian's a fool." The validation was intoxicating. Every kiss felt like reclaiming something stolen. Every touch was a small rebellion against being taken for granted. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I ignored it. Buzzing again. And again. "You should check that," Rafi said, pulling back slightly. Flight cancelled. Singapore Airlines text notification. Arriving early. Landing in 2 hours. 2 hours. Julian would be home in 3. "He'll stop at the office first," I said, more to convince myself. He always does. But through the window, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Julian's Porsche. In our driveway. Right now. Not in 3 hours. Not stopping at the office. Now. And Rafi's BMW was parked right next to it, at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, when there was absolutely no legitimate reason for Julian's best friend to be at his house while he was supposed to be gone. My heart hammered as I heard Julian's key in the lock. Rafi was already straightening his shirt, moving toward the kitchen like we'd been looking at the sink. "Quick," I whispered, grabbing the toolbox from under the cabinet. "The disposal." Julian walked in carrying his Toomey briefcase, suit still crisp despite the flight. His eyes swept the room, Me in yoga pants and a Columbia sweatshirt, Rafi kneeling by the sink cabinet. Flight got cancelled, Julian said, voice neutral. Typhoon warning. Rafi's fixing the disposal, I said too quickly. It's been making that grinding noise again. Julian set down his briefcase. Studied us both. That's nice of him. Though we have a maintenance contract for that. I was driving by, Rafi said, standing up. Maya mentioned it was acting up. Figured I'd save you guys the service call. They did that thing men do, that silent communication where entire conversations happen in glances. Julian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Thanks, brother, Julian finally said. I'll walk you out. After Rafi left, Julian poured himself scotch. Noon on a Tuesday, and he was drinking Macallan 18. Strange that his shirt was untucked, he said conversationally. Rafi's never untucked. Not even at the beach. He was under the sink. Maya. Just my name. Nothing else. Then he went upstairs to his office. That should have been my warning. Should have been my stop sign. But all I felt was anger. How dare he almost catch me when he'd been catching flights away from me for years. Over the next 3 weeks, I got bolder. Stupid, really. But I convinced myself I was owed this. Every late night Julian worked, I texted Rafi. Every weekend Julian golfed with clients, I met Rafi for coffee. Then coffee became wine. Wine became hotel rooms. I used our joint Amex. Why shouldn't I? Half that money was mine. I'd supported Julian through business school, renovated every property that became our stepping stones up. The Fairmont charges, the Ritz-Carlton afternoons, I didn't even hide them. Part of me wanted him to see. To care. To fight for me. Working late again? I'd ask when Julian called to miss dinner. Singapore deal needs restructuring, he'd say. Don't wait up. So I didn't. I went to Rafi instead. He'd trace his fingers along my collarbone and tell me how Julian didn't appreciate what he had. How any man would be lucky to have my attention. How I deserved passion, not partnership quarterly reviews. Leave him, Rafi whispered one night at the Fairmont. You're wasting yourself on someone who sees you as an agenda item. But I didn't want to leave. I wanted Julian to notice. To react. To show some goddamn emotion that proved I still existed to him beyond joint tax returns. The thing about affairs? They make you sloppy. Drunk on attention. I saved Rafi's texts. Left receipts in my purse. Came home with my hair different than when I left. Waiting for Julian to explode. To grab my shoulders and demand to know who was touching his wife. Instead, he installed a Ring doorbell. Started working from home more. Asked specific questions about my day with this strange, detached curiosity. How was lunch? He'd ask. Fine. At the office. The office that had a fire drill today? Must have been inconvenient. He knew. I knew he knew. But we kept dancing this terrible dance. The breaking point came last Thursday. I told Julian I was meeting my sister in the city. Instead, I took Rafi to our country club. In broad daylight. Sat at the bar where Julian's colleagues could see. Let Rafi's hand rest on my thigh while we laughed at nothing. You're playing with fire, Rafi said, but he was smiling. Let it burn, I said. That night, Julian came home with flowers. Not grocery store bouquets, 24 roses from that expensive florist on Elm. What's the occasion? I asked. No occasion. Just remembered you used to love fresh flowers. Used to. Past tense. Like everything about us was already history to him. We're having brunch with my family this Sunday, he said, setting the roses on the counter. My mother specifically requested you. I might be busy. You won't be. Not a question. A statement. It's important to her. Then he smiled. That same smile he wore closing deals that destroyed companies. You should bring Rafi. Mother keeps asking why we never include him in family events anymore. Sunday arrived like a verdict I wasn't ready for. Julian had been eerily pleasant all week, making coffee before leaving for work, asking about my restoration projects, even sitting through Isla's piano practice. It felt like being fattened for slaughter. Wear the blue dress, he suggested that morning. The one from our anniversary dinner. The one he'd barely noticed when I wore it 6 months ago. Now he remembered it existed. Rafi texted while I was doing my makeup, sure this is a good idea? Julian insisted, I replied. His mother specifically asked. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before his response, Something feels off. Everything felt off. But I was tired of feeling invisible. If Julian wanted to play some game, fine. I'd already been playing my own for months. The Mercer estate in Greenwich was its usual display of casual wealth. 30 relatives milling around the garden, waitstaff Julian's mother had used for decades, his father holding court by the bar with stories about the Fed's latest mistakes. Maya, darling. His mother, Eleanor, air-kissed me. You look lovely. Though a bit thin. Is everything alright? Perfect, Julian answered for me, hand proprietarily on my lower back. Just busy with work. Rafi arrived 20 minutes later, looking like he'd rather be performing emergency surgery on himself. Julian greeted him with a bear hug and bourbon. They stood together laughing at something on Julian's phone while I helped Eleanor with the seating arrangements. It's so nice to see Julian and Rafi together, Eleanor said. Such a wonderful friendship. The kind that survives anything. The emphasis on anything might have been my imagination. Might have been. We sat for brunch, Julian at the head, me to his right, Rafi directly across from me. A perfect triangle. Julian's father started his usual toast about family values, integrity, the importance of loyalty. I drank champagne too fast. Speaking of loyalty, Julian's father continued, I want to acknowledge Julian's remarkable discipline this quarter. While others chase quick satisfaction, he plays the long game. Always thinking 3 moves ahead. Julian raised his glass to his father. Then looked directly at me. Though sometimes, Julian said, voice carrying across the table, people mistake patience for ignorance. They think if you don't react immediately, you don't see what's happening right in front of you. The table quieted. That specific quiet that happens when everyone senses blood in the water but doesn't know whose. Take restoration, for example, Julian continued, eyes still on me. Maya's taught me so much about it. How sometimes you have to strip away layers of cheap paint to find out what's really underneath. Sometimes what looks valuable is actually rotting from the inside. My hand tightened on my champagne flute. Eleanor tried to interject. Julian, perhaps? No, Mother, I think this is important. He stood, still holding his glass. Because integrity matters. Truth matters. And when someone you trust, someone you've given everything to, decides you're not enough. Rafi shifted in his seat. I could feel his panic from across the table. This was it. The explosion I'd wanted. The emotion I'd craved. But it was cold. Controlled. Surgical. You know what? I stood too, champagne courage flooding my veins. You're right, Julian. Truth does matter. The entire table was watching now. Julian's sister had her phone out, pretending to check messages but definitely recording. So here's a truth for your precious family values, I said, looking at Eleanor, then back to Julian. Your son is so busy playing the long game, he forgot he was even married. So yes, Rafi knows things about me. Intimate things. He knows my body better than Julian ever bothered to learn it. The silence was absolute. Eleanor's gasp cut through it like shattered crystal. Julian set down his glass. Slowly. Deliberately. Thank you, he said quietly. For saying that publicly. With witnesses. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then looked back at me. I've just sent that recording to my attorney. Along with the previous 6 weeks of documentation. My phone buzzed. A banking alert. Your access to joint account ending in 8745 has been suspended pending review. Then another. And another. Every account. Every credit card. Everything with Julian's name on it. The locks will be changed by the time you get home, Julian said, walking toward the door. Your belongings will be in the garage. I sat in my car outside the Greenwich estate for 20 minutes, hands shaking. Not from tears, from rage. How dare he humiliate me like that? After everything I'd sacrificed for his career? My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from everyone at the brunch. Julian's sister had already posted the video to her Instagram story with prayer hands emojis. My own sister texting, WTF Maya? I tried my credit cards at a gas station. All declined. Even my personal Visa that I'd had before marriage. The checking account I'd opened last month? Frozen. The savings I'd been slowly moving money into? Under review. Rafi called 6 times before I answered. Maya, what the hell were you thinking? Where are you? I demanded. Driving back to the city. Listen, we need to. Meet me at the house. We need to get my things before. I can't. His voice was strained. Julian's attorney just called me. I'm named in the divorce filing. If I come near you or the house, it violates some restraining provision. That's ridiculous. You can't. Maya, he has photos. Recordings. Credit card records. My medical board just called about an emergency ethics review. I could lose my license. The line went dead. I drove home alone. Sure enough, everything I owned was in boxes in the garage. 12 years of marriage reduced to neat labels in Julian's precise handwriting. Maya, clothes. Maya, books. Maya, personal items. My key didn't work. The garage door code had been changed. But the boxes were accessible from the side entrance. How thoughtful. I called my lawyer. Then 3 more lawyers. Each one listened, then quoted retainers I couldn't access without unfreezing the accounts. Massachusetts is an at-fault divorce state, the 4th lawyer explained. With documented adultery and financial misconduct, you're looking at an uphill battle. Financial misconduct? Those transfers you've been making. The credit card charges at hotels. The fake invoices you submitted to your joint account for consultation work. Your husband's forensic accountant found it all. I hadn't submitted fake invoices. Those were real consultations. Weren't they? Monday morning, I walked into my office at Stedman Restoration to find security waiting. Ms. Calder, we need you to come with us. My boss, Harold Stedman, stood behind them looking disgusted. Your husband's attorney sent over some interesting documentation about fraudulent billing. Projects you claimed to work on during times you were otherwise engaged. That's insane. I've never. The Brennan Estate Restoration? You billed 60 hours in July. The Brennans confirmed you were there maybe 6. My stomach dropped. I had padded those hours. Just a little. To cover the time with Rafi. But how did Julian? We're conducting a full audit, Harold continued. You're suspended without pay, effective immediately. By Wednesday, the full scope of Julian's retaliation became clear. Every single thing I'd done to cover the affair, every little lie, every moved dollar, every padded timesheet, had been documented and weaponized. My mother called crying. The entire church saw Patricia's Facebook post. That video from the brunch. How could you say those things? Mom, Julian neglected me for years. So you announce your adultery at a family gathering? You humiliate yourself and your children like this? The children. Julian had picked them up from school Monday. Told them mommy needed some time to think about her choices. They were staying with him indefinitely. I tried everything. Called journalists about Julian's emotional abuse. Created anonymous social media accounts to share my side. Even reached out to his competitors with dirt about his business practices, dirt I manufactured when I couldn't find any real scandals. Each attempt backfired spectacularly. The journalists fact-checked and found my lies. The social media accounts were traced back to me. The fake business allegations triggered an investigation, into me, not Julian. Thursday afternoon, 2 FBI agents appeared at my motel door. Maya Calder? We need to discuss several fraudulent documents you've submitted regarding Horizon Capital. Filing false reports with the SEC is a federal crime. Behind them, I saw Julian's attorney walking up with more papers. Ms. Calder, the attorney said with a cold smile, you're being sued for defamation, fraud, and criminal conspiracy. Also, this is a custody filing. Given your recent behavior, Mr. Mercer is seeking sole custody with supervised visitation only. The FBI agents let me change out of my pajamas before taking me in. Small mercies. The motel manager watched from his office window as they led me to their sedan, probably already calculating how fast he could rent my room to someone who wasn't making the evening news. The federal building's interrogation room was nothing like TV shows. No dramatic lighting. Just fluorescent bulbs, a wobbling table, and a recording device that blinked red like an accusation. Ms. Calder, Agent Torres said, sliding papers across the table. These documents about Horizon Capital's supposed insider trading. You created them? I was trying to expose. Yes or no? Did you fabricate these documents? My court-appointed lawyer, since I couldn't afford the retainer for a real one, nudged my foot. You don't have to answer that. But they had my laptop. My search history showing how to forge SEC documents. The metadata proving I'd created the files last week, not months ago like I'd claimed. I want a deal, I said. Agent Torres almost laughed. You have nothing to deal with. Your husband already provided everything we need. The next morning, I was released on bond I couldn't pay. My mother put up her house as collateral, crying the entire time at the courthouse. "I don't understand," she kept saying. "How did you become this person?" The custody hearing was worse than the FBI interview. Julian's lawyer had created a timeline. A devastating PowerPoint of my destruction. Every lie mapped out with receipts, timestamps, GPS data. June 15th, Ms. Calder claimed to be at a client meeting. Credit card records show a charge at the Fairmont Hotel. Security footage confirms she was with Mr. Ortega. Slide after slide. My children's faces got smaller in the gallery as their father's attorney painted me as unhinged, criminal, dangerous. Rafi wasn't there. He'd fled to his brother's place in Miami after the medical board suspended his license pending investigation. His lawyer sent a statement distancing him from me completely, claiming I'd pursued him relentlessly and he'd been momentarily weak but deeply regretful. The judge looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. Supervised visitation only. Every other Saturday, 2 hours, court-appointed monitor present. Any violation will result in complete termination of parental rights. 2 hours. Every other week. With a stranger watching. That night, I sat in my mother's guest room scrolling through my phone. Julian had kept the kids off social media, but his sister hadn't held back. Photos from Theo's baseball game, Julian cheering from the stands with some blonde woman beside him. Not touching. Just existing in the space I used to occupy. The comments were brutal. "Good riddance to that psycho. Poor Julian, glad he escaped. She got what she deserved." My firm officially fired me the next week. The forensics audit had found 3 years of padded hours. Small amounts, but consistent. Enough to prove embezzlement. "We won't press charges," Harold said over the phone. "But you'll never work in restoration again. I'll make sure of that." My LinkedIn flooded with connection requests from journalists and true crime podcasters. Everyone wanted to hear about the Connecticut wife who destroyed her own life. One podcast offered me $5,000 for an exclusive. I almost took it until my lawyer explained it would violate my plea agreement. The criminal trial was set for next month. My lawyer said if I pled guilty to everything, the fraud, the falsified documents, the embezzlement, I might get 3 to 5 years instead of 10. 3 to 5 years? I couldn't breathe. "You committed multiple federal crimes, Ms. Calder. This is actually generous." I sold everything I could. My engagement ring bought 2 months of lawyer fees. My car covered another month. But it wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough anymore. The night before my final pretrial hearing, I sat in my mother's kitchen trying to write a letter to my kids. Trying to explain how mommy made mistakes but still loved them. The words wouldn't come. Every sentence sounded like an excuse. A knock at the door interrupted me. Mom was asleep. It was past midnight. I looked through the peephole. Nobody there. But on the doorstep sat a manila envelope. No address. No postage. Just 3 words written in Julian's handwriting. "Proof you wanted." My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a USB drive and a single sheet of paper with tomorrow's trial date circled in red. I plugged the USB into my mother's ancient laptop. 1 folder. 1 video file. It was my therapist's office. Dr. Elaine Novak, who I'd been seeing for marriage troubles. The timestamp showed 3 months ago, back when I thought I was so clever, so justified. There I was, curled in her leather chair, tissue box beside me. But I wasn't crying. I was laughing. "I've been moving money for months," my voice came through the laptop speakers. Small amounts. Nothing he'd notice. Opening accounts in my name only. If I'm going to blow up my marriage, I need insurance. "And the affair?" Dr. Novak asked. "Rafi's perfect for this. Julian's best friend, it'll destroy him. But here's the beautiful part, I've been documenting everything to make it look like Julian's been absent, neglectful, emotionally abusive. Time stamps when he's at work. Photos of me alone at the kids' events. I'm building a case." My stomach heaved. I didn't remember saying it like that. In my memory, I was the victim. The video continued. "I've even started padding my work hours. Just enough to build a nest egg. If Julian wants to ignore me, fine. But I'll make sure he pays for it. Literally." "Maya," Dr. Novak's voice was careful. "What you're describing sounds like fraud." "It's survival," Video Me snapped. "You know what's fraud? Promising to love someone then treating them like furniture. I deserve compensation for 12 years of being his accessory." The recording went on for 43 minutes. Every scheme. Every lie. Every crime I'd planned, laid out like a confession. But therapy recordings were confidential. Protected. How did Julian? The second file answered that. An email from Dr. Novak to Julian's attorney, dated last week, per state law regarding mandatory reporting when a patient admits to ongoing crimes involving financial fraud and child welfare. I am providing this recording. Ms. Calder's demonstrated planning shows premeditation that may endanger the minor children's stability. She'd reported me. My own therapist had given Julian everything. I called my lawyer, waking him at 1 a.m. They have my therapy sessions. Confessions to everything. Silence. Then, take the plea. Today. Before trial. Whatever they offer. The next morning, I sat in court wearing my mother's old suit because I'd sold all mine. Julian was there in his charcoal Tom Ford, the one I'd picked out for his promotion dinner. That blonde woman sat 2 rows behind him. Not touching. Just present. The prosecutor played the recording for the judge. My voice echoing through the courtroom, confessing to crimes I'd convinced myself were justified revenge. The state recommends 5 years minimum security, eligibility for parole in 3. My lawyer stood. We accept, Your Honor. But Julian's attorney rose too. Mr. Mercer would like to address the court. Julian walked to the podium. Looked at me for the first time in weeks. Your Honor, my wife, he paused. My ex-wife thought I didn't notice her. But I noticed everything. Every lunch with Rafi she thought was secret. Every dollar she moved. Every hour she stole from her employer. I documented it all. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew who I married. Someone who would rather destroy everything than admit she was wrong. He pulled out his phone, showed something to the judge. 18 months of surveillance, Your Honor. All legal. All showing a pattern of escalating deception. I gave her rope. She hung herself with it. What are you asking for, Mr. Mercer? Full custody. No visitation upon release. Complete termination of parental rights. The judge nodded. Granted. The gavel fell like a guillotine. 3 years later, I work at a grocery store in Worcester. Stock shelves. Mop floors. My mother died while I was inside, heart attack, though her friends say it was shame. Yesterday, Theo posted his Harvard acceptance on Instagram. The caption thanked his dad and bonus mom Astrid for their support. That blonde woman has a name now. And my title. Julian was right. He played the long game. And I played myself. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.